Hi, this is Eternal King here, bringing you another RPG video today. So I wanted to do a quick rundown of the Elden Ring patch. We got a massive comprehensive patch just yesterday, and there have been a huge list of changes that are worth talking about. First thing, talking about equipment. So increased poise damage of normal attacks of the following weapon types: light great swords, backhand blades, hand-to-hand, and beast claw. So, again, all of these weapons are light weapons. They are trying to increase the poise damage of, again, Beast Claws, the martial arts move set, light great swords. These are all DLC weapon types that were traditionally very bad to attack with one hand due to their low poise damage, so they've been buffed across the board. While that's kind of neat, because again, Beast Claws and martial arts not being meta weapon choices for PvP, um, what's actually much more interesting is they buffed the poise damage of dual wield attacks. So straight swords, thrusting swords, curved swords, katanas, spears, whips, fists, and claws. All of these power stance weapons, or weapons that you wield in both your left hand and your right hand simultaneously, have been buffed. The reason for that is because two-handing your weapon in Elden Ring PvP, which means wielding one weapon with both hands, basically did 15% more raw damage thanks to a new talisman that was introduced in the expansion, and it also did a massive amount of poise damage. So basically, two-handing weapons was better than dual-wielding weapons. What you've seen now is that across the board, dual-wielding weapons has been buffed almost ubiquitously. Not, heavy colossal weapons, for example, but like any light dual-wielding weapon that you can think of has essentially been buffed to be more viable in PvP, which is really nice. Very considerate of the developers to do that. Talking about weapon arts, Savage Lion's Claw was buffed, so that it's basically a straight upgrade of normal Lion's Claw, which is true of all the DLC weapon arts. They're basically upgrades over the weapon arts of the base game. Blind Spot was nerfed, decreased vulnerability window against other player attacks. So now if you have a horizontal attack, like a greatsword swing or something, if you swing horizontally into an opponent using Blind Spot, there's actually a very good chance you'll clip them before the skill lands. So that's nice. It gives you a little bit of tech that if you're using weapons that have large horizontal swings, Blind Spot is no longer going to iframe through that. Talking about spells and incantations, there's a lot more here than what's being listed. The big change is actually the bleed spell. So there was a thorn spell introduced in the DLC that would instantly proc bleed, and it was an absolute menace in PvP and an absolute menace in PvE because it would just one-shot things or instantly burst down the hardest bosses in the game. It wasn't fun either way. If you were co-oping with someone who had the spell, it wasn't fun. If you were using it in PvP, it wasn't fun. So the big spell change is that they basically got rid of the insane amount of bleed proccing the spell would do. It still does the exact same amount of damage, it just does less status damage, which is pretty big. General balance adjustments. They basically buffed all of the summon spirits that are not Mimic Tier. So, Mimic Tier was considered the best summon in the game. It was basically an exact copy of you, but controlled by the AI. Now all other summons have been buffed to essentially be as good as Mimic Tier, if not better. Talking about some more armament buffs, Shield of Night, Euphoria, Golden Lion Shield, Golem Fist, Smith Script, Great Hammer. These are all nice little buffs, little tweaks to damage numbers, guard strength, things of that nature. But what's really nice is this one right here. So the spread crossbow, similar to the bleed spell, used to be a instant sleep proc. So I would call it the sleep shotgun. And basically what it would do is that regardless of whether you were blocking or not blocking, if the sleep crossbow hits you, you would fall asleep and then not be able to control your character. It was an absolute bugged weapon that they have fixed now, so it decreases the general status buildup when using bolts that have status effects on the spread crossbow. Now it does about half a status bar, which is fine because it's a slow reload. So again, they fixed the sleep shotgun. Talking about other weapon arts that have been changed, Swift Slash reduced movement distance when using the skill, so it's not going to roll catch quite as well. If someone spams Swift Slash on you and you roll away or try to space them out, it's not going to track quite as far. Overhead stance, increased attack power against enemies. Okay, so that's a PvE adjustment. Light speed slash, the additional lightning attacks are now affected by the attack power and ability scaling of the weapon, so this was bugged to not actually deal full damage, which is kind of silly. Rancor slash buffed, not dealing for full damage of the spirits and things like that. Basically across the board. Horn calling storm, increased attack power against enemies other than players. They're trying to make all of these I would say low use weapon arts introduced in the DLC more viable, and that's a good thing. Weed Cutter increased speed of attacks. Weed Cutter was already good, but now it's even better. Red Bear Hunt is the unique Beast Claws introduced in the DLC. They're better now, which is really nice. They're very strong. Increased attack power and increased poise value when using the skill. Red Bear Hunt. It's massive. It does so much damage. Rancor Shot, decreased status buildup. It's the same thing with the Sleep Shotgun. People would use Rancor Shot. Instead of a shotgun, you'd have a machine gun that basically would inflict sleep on you, and it wasn't very fun. Repeating Fire, the actual machine gun crossbow has been buffed because it was actually bad. So across the board, you're just seeing things improved. Glint Blade Trio, increased power. Blades of Stone, increased power. Glintstone Nail, increased power. Impenetrable Thorns was the big nerf. I'm really glad that that's just worse now. Decreased attack power and poise damage. Decreased bleed status buildup. It's just in general very good that this was toned down. It was brutal. This and the Sleep Shotgun were like the two worst things in Elden Ring. Rings of Spectral Light now actually do more damage, and they inflict Frostbite, which means that Rings of Spectral Light was already the best ring spell. Now it's just even better. It's just like one of the best holy damage spells in the game. Land of Shadow improved enemy tracking. That's really nice. Spira increased attack speed. Really nice. So again, Rain of Fire. Rain of Fire used to be useless. It used to deal like 100 damage. Rain of Fire is now usable. If you charge it, it actually does build up a decent amount of damage if enemies stand in it, and then obviously large enemies will get hit a lot more. So Rain of Fire is like obviously slightly better in PvE than PvP, but it's actually a spell now. It's pretty good. Then Rotten Butterflies, increased Scarlet Rot buildup, and it reduced the interval between damage ticks and increased attack range. So it basically got the Rain of Fire treatment. It's now a usable spell. It's actually good. So great changes all across the board. Divine Beast Tornado improved, great change. And then obviously here we see with Spirit Ashes, every single Spirit Ash that is basically not Mimic Tier has all been improved. They have more HP, they don't stagger as easily, they have increased attack power across the board. They're basically making it so that when you summon something that you really like, it could be, Perfumer Trisha. You really like Perfumer Trisha because like that's cool. She sprays fire everywhere and she rolls around and she's a light build and she has some support spells. The problem was she was just bad, right? She was just bad. So again, buffing the HP, making her stagger less easily so she doesn't get chain locked down by bosses. It just makes her more viable for DLC usage. And like Headless, for example, Headless was actually legitimately pretty decent. He's even better now. Increased attack power and damage negation against physical attacks, and he will no longer get chain stunned by aggressive bosses in the DLC. So all across the board, Spirit Ashes are just better that are not Mimic Tier. That's good. That's good because again, Spirit Ashes should be decent across the board. They should all be viable. It used to be that only a very small number of Spirit Ashes were good, and then the Spirit Ashes in the DLC were good, and the Mimic Tier was good, and that was kind of it. Now, across the board, all of these sort of core game Spirit Ashes that you see from vanilla are now better. Just period, full stop, they're better, and that makes them usable for endgame. And yeah, I love this patch. Everything about this patch is amazing. They fixed the bugged weapon, they fixed the bugged spell, they buffed dual wielding over two-handing to just get it back, on par with two-hand builds being kind of meta. Uh, I just love every single change here. I think coming out of this patch, we're in a pretty healthy place for Elden Ring. I don't think there's a lot of super toxic stuff compared to what we've seen in the past, right? Before we had perfumes that would one-shot people because it was bugged. We had status builds that would, either insta-bleed or insta-sleep people because they were bugged, and now that stuff's gone. And again, dual wielding is better than it used to be. It's actually competitively viable to dual wield as well as two-hand your weapon. This is Eternal King, signing out.